I feel like mainstream media don't talk enough the fact that President Trump managed to send a blockade to the Strait of Hormuz, right? Now, first, you have to understand that this is not just a war. This is literally Iran and the United States playing 3D chess.
You're hoarding. You're playing each piece like losing it hurts. This ain't checkers. You want my king. You got to come get my king. All these other pieces are just a means to do it. Every time you make a good run at me, I just threaten your queen and back you go. You're treating her like she's the last lady on earth. Your queen is just a pawn with a lot of fancy moves, nothing more. When you see you playing a man who feels naked without his lady, use her. Jump in there and take her. Tease her, threaten her, and he won't be able to think about his game anymore. That's when you make your real move.
So the United States and Iran, they were a war, right?
Take a look right here on the right-hand side of your screen. That is video from just moments ago coming in from the Associated Press and Reuters as more airstrikes reported there across Iran's capital city of Tehran. Going to pop this up a little bit bigger so you can see the smoke there in the distance, as today does mark 1 week since the start of the operation. Again, just moments ago, new airstrikes reported in the capital as the U.S. and Israel launched those continuous strikes.
Iran figured that because the United States pretty much got the biggest military in the world, right? They realized that they cannot like fight the United States, right? So they went to their chessboard and they were like, we're gonna use the Strait of Hormuz as a chess piece on the chessboard. So what they did, they were like, look, we're gonna make uncomfortable for the United States and the global economy, right? So we're gonna blockade the Strait of Hormuz.
And a retaliation from Iran is underway at this moment as they threaten the biggest waves yet attack on Israel and U.S. military bases. It also attacked shipping and threatened to close the Strait of Hormuz. Obviously, so very pivotal there, that energy artery there in the region. You can see this from G Captain saying the Strait of Hormuz is now a war zone. Tankers hit, 3 U.S. troops killed. The shipping giants halt Gulf transits. A war risk insurance pulled. 20% of global oil supply hangs in the balance. And this is just the first 36 hours of what's going on there.
Not by sending their naval ships to the Strait of Hormuz, right? Because at that point, the United States already had destroyed the Iranian naval and the Iranian military, right? So what the Iranians did, they used small boats to basically throw mines in the Strait of Hormuz, right? Mines are like basically explosives, right? So that's what they did. They started throwing mines on the Strait of Hormuz. And so no ships could go through the Strait of Hormuz or get out of the Strait of Hormuz, because at that point, nobody knew where those mines were located. So you don't want your ships to explode. So everybody just couldn't go through it. And not only that, insurance companies, the one that, insure those oil tanks, they were like, look, we're not even gonna insure those oil tanks. So if y'all wanna go through the Strait of Hormuz, y'all can go, but at this point, we're gonna cancel those insurances, right? President Trump was like, oh, fuck, what am I gonna do now? So what President Trump did, he went on his Twitter and he made an announcement that the United States was gonna insure those ships going through the Strait of Hormuz, right?
In an effort to get oil tankers and other ships in the Persian Gulf moving, the Trump administration has announced it will provide $20 billion in reassurance to shippers in the area. Since the U.S. and Israel struck Iran last weekend, several private insurers have stopped covering ships for war-related damage in the Persian Gulf. Because of that, oil tankers have nearly stopped moving through the Strait of Hormuz, the narrow waterway off Iran's southern coast where about 20% of the world's oil supply passes through. President Trump says the U.S. will provide government-backed insurance and naval escorts to help get those oil shipments moving again.
Because at that point, the insurance companies decided to cancel those insurance, right? By the way, I believe those insurance companies are from the UK, right? So Trump was like, the United States are gonna insure those ships, so don't worry about it, just keep going through it, right? But you have to understand, it's not just about the insurance companies. All those oil tankers, real people are on those ships. So even if President Trump say, like, okay, I'm gonna make sure that United States insure those tankers, but they like, no, we're not gonna go through the Strait of Hormuz as long as Iran keep sending drones to ships that want to cross the Strait of Hormuz. So at that point, President Trump was like, fine. So President Trump was like, okay, let's go back to the table and let's negotiate, right? So President Trump sent J.D. Vance to Pakistan, right, to negotiate with the Iranian delegation, right? And by the way, this does not include the supreme leader or the new supreme leader of Iran, right?
Vice President J.D. Vance is warning Iran not to play the U.S. as he heads for negotiations aimed at ending the war.
As the President of the United States said, if the Iranians are willing to negotiate in good faith, we're certainly willing to extend the open hand. If they're going to try to play us, then they're going to find that the negotiating team is not that receptive.
President Donald Trump has tasked the member of his inner circle who seemed to be the most reluctant defender of the 6-week-old conflict to now find a resolution. Vance has long been skeptical of foreign military interventions. The Republican vice president set off on Friday to lead mediated talks with Iran in Pakistan.
We're looking forward to the negotiation. I think it's going to be positive.
So they start negotiating in Pakistan. So while they are negotiating, right, they agreed to a ceasefire, right, while the negotiations are going on, right? So this is what President Trump did. President Trump made an announcement that he was gonna send ships to the Strait of Hormuz to help clean the mines, right?
We're continuing to follow the latest here out of Pakistan. As we do know, Vice President J.D. Vance is there right now. These talks currently underway here. These Iran peace talk negotiations. That's a live look there outside that hotel. Now, I also wanted to share this here with you. President Trump just shared this to Truth Social just moments ago, as he's announcing that the U.S. is starting the process of clearing out the Strait of Hormuz. If you are just tuning in here with us, we shared this before the break. I want to just reiterate what we have learned here from the president. He announced today, quote, that we're now starting the process of clearing out the Strait of Hormuz as a favor to countries all around the world, including China, Japan, South Korea, France, Germany, and many others. Incredibly, they don't have the courage or will to do this work themselves. Very interestingly, however, empty oil carrying ships from many nations are all heading to the United States to load up with oil. This announcement comes as negotiations between the U.S. and Iran are currently unfolding there in Pakistan, as I just shared with you.
So at that point, it was tricking the Iranians, right? Because his intention was not to clean the mines. His intention was to form a blockade on the Strait of Hormuz, right? So the Iranians are thinking, okay, these ships are just to clean the mines. No, he's sending those destroyers to the Strait of Hormuz to sit there, right? And so now when President Trump realized that the negotiations in Pakistan were not even going in favor of the United States. So he said, okay, I'm not going to send a blockade to the Strait of Hormuz. By the way, he already had sent the blockade to the Strait of Hormuz before he had announced. But the only thing is that the Iranians, they thought that those ships going through to the Strait of Hormuz were just to help clean the mines that the Iranians threw on the Strait of Hormuz, right? So they didn't realize that Trump was tricking them, right? In believing that, oh no, I'm just cleaning the Strait of Hormuz with those explosives that you guys threw here, but then it's a blockade. And now the Iranians are pissed. And so at that point, President Trump does not even care what the Iranians are talking about in the negotiation room, right? Because it's like, look, if you guys are now trying to do whatever I am trying to do, I don't care. I'm just gonna let all these big ships sit on the Strait of Hormuz until you guys decide what you want to do. And by the way, all those ships on the Strait of Hormuz are basically crumbling the Iranians' economy, right? Because the United States are not letting no ships going through the Strait of Hormuz that belong to Iran. So Iran cannot get nothing to their ports, in or out, right? So that's the objective of the blockade on the Strait of Hormuz, to crumble, make the Iranian economy crumble, right? And so I feel like the mainstream media don't give President Trump enough credit for sending a blockade to the Strait of Hormuz. Not only sending, but keeping the blockade all this time. You know how hard that is? And now you might ask, how do we know that this blockade is working? This is how I know the blockade is working, right? So Iran cannot do anything with the United States. So what they do is they realize the United States is an ally with a lot of countries in the Middle East. So they start hitting those United States allies, right? And so what happened is those countries start calling the United States, hey, look, you need to stop this. And guys, President Trump just showed us how to play 3D chess.